What was a house rule you had as a kid that you thought was completely normal until you grew up and realized not all households followed? My mum used to pay me to be my own babysitter between the ages of 10 to 14 or so. The rule was that as long as I didn't make a mess and did put myself to bed by the time she got home, then I got $10 in the morning. When I was really young, I had a night bell. It was this old clay bell that hung in the kitchen, and when I had to go to bed I got to ring the bell and everyone would come say goodnight and then I would go to bed. Not really a rule, but a weird little ritual in our house. My family had a thing we called the food blanket. When we'd eat casual meals, we'd lay a blanket on the living room floor and eat on it, like a picnic. My parents didn't want to get any food on the carpet. Instead of set the table, my mom would say, "Go lay out the blanket." I remember being really confused when I learned every family didn't have a food blanket. Maybe it's not our house rule, but when I was 6 my mom told me that if I behaved she would let me skip school on Saturdays and Sundays. One day my teacher said, "See you Monday," and I knew. We weren't allowed to watch anything remotely sexual, like if people were kissing on screen my mom would freak out and run to cover the TV with a pillow and go blah blah cough loudly until it was over. Once I tried to see one free movie with my friends and my mom cried and my dad called me horrible for making her cry. I was 14. We weren't allowed to get into the fridge or the cabinets without asking permission. My family was very poor and we had a limited food budget, so eating something without permission very possibly meant eating one ingredient of a meal my stepmother was planning on cooking within the next few days. I went to friends' houses and they just ate whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. I wasn't allowed to take a shower if I was home alone. I also learned at age 7 that other households closed the bathroom door when using the toilet and keeping it open was weird. I learned that by keeping the door open at a friend's house, a friend walked by the bathroom, saw me, told their mom called my mom, and all of a sudden the new house rule was we closed the bathroom door when using the toilet. We weren't allowed to walk in our dining room unless we were using the room for a special occasion. The carpet always had that just vacuumed look, so it was a dead giveaway if anyone walked across it. If you don't get us, you don't eat at the table. I legit thought this was normal until I had dinner at a friend's house and my friend brought home a devastating report card. His parents were so supportive and loving. Edit. I'm not Asian, you guys. Not a rule, but still to this day I am befuddled at my mother's reasoning. When I was a boy we lived in a pretty rural part of Mexico. Horrible infrastructure. Power would often go out in the middle of the night. She would proceed to wake my brother and I up, simply to wait until the power came back on. For the life of me I cannot figure that out. She wasn't afraid of the dark. She just wanted to make sure we saw the power return. Edit. Everyone keeps suggesting because of fire reasons, and come to think of it, that actually makes a lot of sense. It's actually how we lost that house. Maybe my mother is clairvoyant. No curfew as long as I told my mom where I would be. I was always honest BCS. I love being 16 with no curfew. Any of the kids, 7 of us, can play with any toy that is left out. The owner of the toy can't take it back until whoever's playing with it is done. If the toy is put away in the owner's room, permission must be asked. My mom freaks out about hearing commercials on TV. The second it goes to commercial break it has to be muted. She also mutes it if she thinks it's about to go to commercial, even though sometimes it's wrong. And she doesn't really pay attention, so she doesn't notice a lot of the time when the commercials are over, so she leaves it on mute when the show is back on. It's very difficult to watch TV with her. When I got in trouble I was put on reading restriction, as a punishment. I loved to read as a kid, still do, so it was an effective punishment at the time. If you couldn't find something, and you asked someone for help, sibling or parent, and they found it for you, they got to punch you in the arm. Wasn't in my home, but my aunt and uncle never let us use the upstairs washroom when we were kids because they thought we'd touch the walls with our dirty hands, so they made us piss in a jar they kept under the kitchen sink and just poured it down the drain when we were done. Never thought it was strange until I brought it up to my cousin a few years ago. We laughed pretty hard about it. Not being allowed to leave the table until your meal was finished. I remember eating at a friend's house and looking really uncomfortable trying to finish a food I didn't like, only to be told, you don't have to finish it if you don't want to. Mind-blowing. Bare skin was not allowed to touch the leather sofa. No shorts, bare feet, tank tops, etc. Also, we had to peel mushrooms. It took forever and was completely stupid. I know a girl who gets fucked by her dog and he gets the best food and vet care imaginable. Really healthy dog. Edit. Wow, thanks for the gold, kind stranger. Edit 2. Wow, 2 golds and 2 silvers. Edit 3. If anyone went through my comment history, but I'm basically the world's greatest troll. Keep that in mind. When I was sick, I couldn't be in my bed because it would make it dirty. My mom put a towel in a corner on the hardwood floor and I had to stay there until she d-ed me better enough to use my bed. My sister and I had to read for 30 minutes after school. My parents weren't even home, but we would tattle on each other. Another rule was, I couldn't tell anyone when a certain uncle was staying with us because he was dodging an arrest warrant. Edit. This is my most popular post. To clear a few things up, my uncle isn't a pedophile or a violent offender. He's an addict and a thief. Also, my sister and I weren't taught to snitch on each other. We were just enemies. Looking back, we could have gotten away with a lot if we'd teamed up. Edit 2. My first coins. Thank you, kind stranger. Edit 3. And silver. Thank you, wise oracle. My parents used a laissez-faire parenting style. No censorship whatsoever. I watched Rocky Horror Picture Show with my brother when I was 7. Pretty awkward when I brought the VHS with me to a sleepover at a friend's house. The parents were mortified. My dad made a rule that I had to kill 7 flies a day during my summer break. First thing upon coming in the house, you have to change into clean pants and wash your hands. Guests were exempt from the pants rule but not hand washing. If you took your shoes off while you were out, you had to change your socks as well. Take half the house off in winter. I was not allowed to clear my plate when eating. I had to always leave some food on the plate. If I wanted to eat that much, I had to go get a little more to leave on the plate. The exact opposite of what most people have as a household rule. Edit. For those confused, I clarify in comments below. I super enjoyed all the new cultural knowledge. I'm going to bed. If I told my parents I was leaving at a certain time, I had to leave at that time. Let's say I told my parents I would leave a party at 9. I couldn't leave at 8:50 am, or I'd get yelled at /grounded. I couldn't leave at 9:10 am, or I would get yelled /grounded. Same thing went for when I was leaving my house to go somewhere. Leave the porch light on until everyone is home. After I moved out and lived with my boyfriend, I remember getting angry with him for not leaving the porch light on when he knew I would be home late. His response was pretty much, "But you didn't ask me to. Don't eat the last of something without first asking if anyone else wants any." Same boyfriend, poor guy, ate the last of the cookies. I was so mad that he didn't ask if I wanted any. This was the first time either of us lived away from our parents, so we had a lot of wait. Your family doesn't do this conversations. Our bedtime in high school was 9 p.m. We weren't allowed to eat any food past 7 p.m. No television before 5 or after 8, and dinner is at 6. No singing at the table, unless it's a birthday. Still to this day I don't cope well with quiet, but I guess when I was a kid the karaoke party never stopped. It was a good rule, but not necessary for most households. Not being allowed to hang out with girls at all, Edit. I am in fact a male. Edit again. Thank you for all the upvotes. Was literally told by my best friend's dad I was only allowed to eat popcorn one kernel at a time. No swearing, which includes the obvious as well as stupid, idiot, shut up, and fart. I grew up with 6 siblings. In the TV room, there were more people than couch seats. We had a rule that you couldn't steal someone's seat if they got up to go to the bathroom, get a drink, etc. My parents instituted it because of all the fights that would happen over seats. We all instantly realized how great a rule it was. No more arguments. But more importantly, your seat was safe for the night. I never thought it was a normal rule as defined by the op, but it is a great rule that every family should have. We had to have milk after dinner, but before bed. Asked my mom when I was older what that was about, and she realized we could have just had milk with dinner if we wanted, but she had been raised kosher, so it wasn't something she thought about. Deleted. No going places on my own. It's not a rule, but I get in trouble for going places and am never given permission to go anywhere. Turns out all my friends can be just about anywhere and I'm stuck saying can't, man. My mom said no. Eating dinner as a family, at the table. I met so many people in college who thought that whole idea was absurd. Vegetables. A little or a lot? That was my mom's response when I didn't want to eat them. Subscribe, like and comment if you hate outros. Begging you to subscribe, like and comment.